My boss has slept with everyone in our organization. Oh, okay, maybe I over-exaggerated, but he has slept with 15 female employees or more. Well, don't ask me how I know. His name is Julian Daniels, 32 years old, billionaire, CEO of Dan's Industries, a tech company worth $8 billion that he'd built from absolutely nothing. Handsome in that sharp, expensive way that comes from personal trainers and tailored suits, and never having to worry about anything as ordinary as money. He had power, real power, the kind that makes people nervous when he walks into a room, the kind that turns conversations silent and heads down. And he had a reputation. Not a good one. Julian Daniels slept with women the way other people collect stamps. Casually. Frequently. Without attachment or consequence or anything resembling genuine feeling. Specifically, he slept with women who worked for him. His assistant. The head of marketing. 3 different project managers. 2 software engineers. The woman who ran his public relations team. On and on and on, a rotating door of relationships that lasted exactly as long as his interest did, which was never very long. He didn't force anyone. That's important. He didn't threaten or coerce. He simply existed. Young, rich, powerful, charming when he wanted to be. And people fell into his orbit the way planets fall into the sun. Then he'd move on. Quietly. Professionally. A generous severance package. A glowing recommendation. Sometimes a promotion to a different department so things wouldn't be awkward. He thought he was being kind about it. He thought this made him better than other men with his kind of power. He was wrong. But he wouldn't understand that until much, much later. There was a pattern to how it happened. Always the same. Like a script he'd memorized without realizing it. First, he'd notice someone. Usually someone smart, ambitious, attractive. Someone who didn't immediately fall at his feet the moment he walked past their desk. That was the hook for him. The ones who didn't seem impressed. The ones who treated him like he was just another person instead of Julian Daniels, boy genius, billionaire CEO, youngest person on the Forbes list 3 years running. Second, he'd find reasons to work with them directly. Late nights in the office. Strategy sessions. One-on-one meetings about projects that probably didn't need one-on-one meetings. Third, the charm. He was very good at this part. Asking questions about their life. Remembering small details. Making them feel seen in a way most bosses never bother to do. Making them feel special. Fourth, the connection. Or, what he told himself was a connection. A moment where they'd laugh at the same thing, or finish each other's sentences, or lock eyes across a conference table, and something would shift in the air between them. Fifth, the inevitability. A drink after work. Dinner at a restaurant where the waiters knew his name. Back to his penthouse apartment with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. The city he owned or felt like he owned. Sixth, the affair. Weeks, sometimes months, of something that felt to them like a relationship. To him, it felt like entertainment, distraction, proof that he could have whoever he wanted, whenever he wanted them. Seventh, the ending. Always initiated by him. Always gentle. This isn't working. We want different things. You deserve someone who can give you more.
As if he was doing them a favor by breaking their heart. Eighth, the aftermath. The woman would leave the company, or transfer, or stay and pretend nothing had happened while dying inside every time she saw him in the hallway. He would move on immediately, barely remember their names 6 months later. This had happened 17 times in the 5 years since he'd started Dan's Industries. 17 women. He didn't feel guilty about it. Not really. They were adults. They made their choices. He never promised anyone forever. That's what he told himself every time he saw the look in their eyes when he ended things. The look that said, "I thought I was different. I thought you actually cared." He ignored that look, had gotten very good at ignoring it, until the day she walked into his office and everything changed. Her name is Iris Valen. Julian didn't attend the hiring process. He had people for that, but he noticed her the first day she started. Hard not to notice her. Not because she was beautiful, though she was, in an understated way that didn't rely on makeup or expensive clothes. Dark hair pulled back simply, plain clothes that fit well but didn't call attention to themselves, face that was striking without trying to be. He noticed her because of the way she moved through the office, like she was observing everything, taking it all in, seeing things other people missed. And because of the way she looked at him when they passed each other in the hallway that first morning. Most people, when they saw Julian Daniels, had one of two reactions. Either they lit up, smiled too wide, stood too straight, tried too hard to impress him, or they tensed up, nervous, intimidated, afraid of saying the wrong thing. Iris Valen did neither. She looked at him the way you look at a puzzle you've already figured out, calm, unimpressed, almost sad. It bothered him immediately. That afternoon, he scheduled a meeting with her, told his assistant it was to get to know the new hire, which was unusual. He didn't usually meet with new hires unless they were C-level executives, but he told himself it was important. She was head of product development. Critical role. Made sense to introduce himself properly. She arrived at his office exactly on time, knocked twice, waited for him to say come in before opening the door. She sat down across from him without being invited to sit. Not rudely, just naturally, like someone who didn't need permission to take up space. "Miss Valen," he said, turning on the charm, the smile that had melted 17 women before her. "Welcome to Dan's Industries. I've heard impressive things about you." "Have you?" she said. Not a question, a statement. Her voice was calm, measured, completely neutral. "Your resume is remarkable, especially considering how young you are. Age is irrelevant if the work is good." He leaned back in his chair, studied her. Usually by this point in a conversation, people were smiling, relaxing, trying to connect with him. She was doing none of those things. "You're very direct," he said. "Is that a problem?" "Not at all. I appreciate directness." She looked at him for a long moment, and something happened that had never happened before. He felt exposed, not physically, but like she was looking past a tailored suit, past the charm, past the carefully constructed image of Julian Daniels, self-made billionaire, and seeing something underneath, something he didn't let people see, something he didn't even look at himself most of the time. "You're wondering why I'm not impressed," she said. He blinked.
"I didn't say. You didn't have to." She tilted her head slightly. "You're used to people treating you like you're special, and when someone doesn't, it bothers you, makes you want to figure them out, makes you want to win them over." His jaw tightened. "That's a lot of assumptions about someone you just met." "They're not assumptions." She stood up. "Is there anything else you needed, Mr. Daniels? Or was this meeting just to see if I'd fall into the pattern like the others?" The air left his lungs. "I don't know what you." 17, she said quietly. "In 5 years, you have a type. Smart women who don't immediately worship you. You like the challenge, the chase, and then you get bored, and then they leave or stay and break quietly." He stood up, anger flashing through him. "Who the hell do you think you are? Someone who sees you, she said simply, all of you, not just the parts you show people. And then she walked out of his office and closed the door behind her. Julian stood there for a full minute, breathing hard, fists clenched, feeling something he hadn't felt in years. Shame. He couldn't stop thinking about her. Not the way he usually thought about women, not the pattern, not the game. He kept replaying the conversation, the way she'd looked at him, the way she'd said, someone who sees you like it was the saddest thing in the world. How did she know about the 17 women? He'd been careful, discreet. There were NDAs, severance agreements, carefully worded legal documents designed to keep things quiet. The media had never picked up on it. His board didn't know. Even his closest friends only knew about 2 or 3 of them. So how did she know? He told himself he should fire her. She was clearly unstable, invasive, inappropriate. But he didn't fire her. Instead, he watched her. Not obviously, not creepily, just paid attention. She was kind to people, not in a performative way, just naturally kind, remembered names, asked follow-up questions about people's lives, stayed late to help junior developers debug code even though that wasn't her job. And she completely ignored Julian. Not in a hostile way, she was professional, polite, responded to emails, attended meetings, but she never sought him out, never tried to impress him, never looked at him with anything resembling interest or desire or even curiosity. It was driving him insane. 3 weeks after she started, he found himself outside her office at 8 in the evening. The floor was mostly empty. Through the glass wall, he could see her at her desk, focused on her computer screen, completely absorbed. He knocked. She looked up. Something flickered across her face, not surprise, more like resignation, like she'd been expecting this. Mr. Daniels, she said, is there something you need? I wanted to apologize, he said. The words came out before he'd planned them, for how I reacted when you said what you said in my office. She studied him. You're not sorry for how you reacted. You're curious about how I knew. Damn it, she was right. Both can be true, he said. They can be, but they're not. She turned back to her computer. If there's nothing else, how did you know? He stepped into her office. About the women, about the pattern. How could you possibly know that? She was quiet for a long time. Then she said, because I can see things other people can't. What does that mean? She looked at him again, and this time, something in her eyes was different, older, sadder, like she was carrying something too heavy for one person to hold. It means, she said slowly, that when I look at people, I see the truth underneath, the parts they hide, the parts they're ashamed of, the parts that hurt. He laughed, couldn't help it. That's not possible. I know it's not, but I can do it anyway. She stood up, walked to the window. The city lights spread out below them like a blanket of stars. When I met you, she continued, I saw everything, the 17 women, the emptiness you fill with conquest, the loneliness you pretend doesn't exist, the way you've convinced yourself that not forcing anyone makes you a good person, even though you know deep down that you're hurting them, using them, throwing them away when you're done. His hands were shaking. Stop. You wanted to know how I knew. Now you know. You're lying. This is some kind of. Your mother died when you were 12, she said. Her voice was gentle now, almost kind. Car accident. You were in the passenger seat. You survived without a scratch. She didn't. And you've spent the last 20 years punishing yourself for it, telling yourself you don't deserve real love, that everyone you touch eventually leaves, so you leave first, over and over and over, because it's safer than being left. He couldn't breathe. She turned to face him. I'm not lying, Julian. I wish I was, but I see all of it, every person I meet, every secret, every wound, every lie they tell themselves, and I can't turn it off.
The room was spinning. Why are you telling me this? He asked. Because you asked. And because... She paused. Because you're about to make the same mistake again. There's a woman in accounting. 3rd floor. You noticed her last week. You're already thinking about how to start the pattern. He stumbled backward. I wasn't. Yes, you were. Silence. I'm not here to judge you, Iris said quietly. I'm here to do my job. But you asked me a question, and I answered it. Now you need to decide what you're going to do with the answer. She walked past him, out of her office, leaving him standing there alone in the dark. Julian didn't sleep that night. He sat in his penthouse, lights off, staring at the city below, and thought about his mother. He hadn't thought about her, really thought about her in years. Had locked that memory away in a box somewhere deep and dark where it couldn't hurt him anymore. But Iris had ripped it open like it was nothing. The worst part was that she was right about all of it. The 17 women, the emptiness, the loneliness he pretended didn't exist because acknowledging it felt weak. The woman in accounting, her name was Sophie. He'd noticed her exactly 1 week ago, had already started the mental process figuring out reasons to work with her, planning the conversation that would start everything. The pattern. He'd been about to do it again, and if Iris hadn't said something, he would have, without question, without hesitation. He'd have ruined another person's life and told himself it was fine because they'd made their own choices. At 3 in the morning, he made a decision. He wasn't going to do it anymore. Not with Sophie. Not with anyone. The pattern was over. The next morning, he called an emergency meeting with his HR director, a sharp woman named Patricia who'd been with the company since the beginning, looked confused when he walked in. Julian, what's this about? I need you to review all employee exits from the past 5 years. He said, anyone who left under unusual circumstances, anyone who transferred departments unexpectedly. I want to know if there were any complaints, any allegations, anything that was swept under the rug. Patricia's face went very still. Why are you asking me this? Because I need to know what damage I've caused. A long pause. You're talking about the relationships, she said finally, carefully. Yes, Julian. Those were all consensual. We have documentation. I don't care about the documentation. I care about the truth. Were they hurt? Did I hurt them? Patricia looked down at her hands. Some of them, yes. Some of them filed informal complaints with me. Not about coercion or harassment. Just about feeling used, feeling like they'd been led on. His stomach turned. How many? 11. 11 out of 17. What did you do? What you told me to do. Generous severance. Glowing recommendations. Made the problem go away quietly. He'd told her to do that years ago. Standard procedure for avoiding lawsuits and bad press. I want you to contact every single one of them. Julian said, offer them a formal apology. From me. In writing, and ask them if there's anything at all that would make this right. Patricia stared at him. You're serious? Completely. Julian, this could open you up to lawsuits. This could destroy your reputation. I don't care. Do it. He spent the next 3 weeks writing letters. Not emails, actual letters, handwritten, on paper. One to each woman. He didn't make excuses, didn't justify, didn't ask for forgiveness. He simply told the truth. I used you. I told myself it was mutual. That you made your own choices. That I wasn't doing anything wrong. But I was. I saw you as a conquest, not a person. And I'm sorry. I'm so deeply sorry. Some of them responded, most didn't. The ones who did respond were complicated. One woman wrote back, I don't forgive you, but thank you for finally admitting it. Another, I wasted 2 years of my life thinking I wasn't good enough for you. You broke something in me that I'm still trying to fix. Another, I hope you mean this. I hope you actually change, but I don't believe you will. He read every response, let every word sink in, let the weight of what he'd done settle on his shoulders. And through it all, he kept thinking about Iris, the woman who had seen through him completely, who had looked at him with those sad eyes and said, someone who sees you, all of you. He wanted to talk to her, wanted to tell her that he was trying, that he was changing, that she'd been right about everything. But every time he saw her in the office, she was busy, focused, professional, and he didn't know how to approach her without it feeling like the pattern starting all over again. So he didn't. He just watched from a distance and tried to be a better person than he'd been the day before. 2 months after Iris started at Dan's Industries, Julian found her on the rooftop. It was past midnight. He'd been working late, something he did more often now, throwing himself into the company because it was easier than sitting alone in his apartment thinking about all the ways he'd failed as a human being. He'd come up to the rooftop to clear his head, and there she was, standing at the edge, looking out over the city, the wind moving through her hair, completely still, like a statue, like someone who'd been standing there for hours. Iris, he said quietly. She didn't turn around. You should go back inside. It's late. So should you, she responded. I don't sleep much, she said. He walked closer, stood beside her, close enough to feel the cold air coming off her skin. Because of the ability, he asked, because you see too much? She nodded slowly. Imagine never being able to look at someone without knowing every terrible thing they've ever done, every secret they're hiding, every wound they're carrying. It's exhausting. I can't imagine, he said honestly. No, she said. You can't. They stood in silence for a long time. Then Julian said, I've been writing letters to the women I hurt, apologizing. I know. Of course you do. She turned to look at him. Why did you do it? Because you were right about everything. And I couldn't live with myself anymore knowing what I'd done. Most people can live with themselves just fine, even when they know they're hurting others. I'm trying not to be most people anymore. Something flickered in her eyes. Not warmth exactly, but something softer than the sadness he'd seen before. Do you want to know something? She said. Always. When I look at you now, the picture is different. His heart skipped different. How? The emptiness is still there. The loneliness. But there's something else too. Something that wasn't there before. She paused. Regret. Real regret. And the beginning of something that might be change. Is that good? I don't know yet. The wind picked up. She shivered slightly. Without thinking, Julian took off his jacket and draped it over her shoulders. She looked at the jacket, then at him, and for the first time since they'd met, she smiled. A small smile. Barely there, but real. Thank you, she said. You're welcome. They stood there together, side by side, not touching, not speaking, just existing in the same space. And Julian felt something he hadn't felt in 20 years. Peace. After that night, things changed. Not dramatically, not with grand gestures or declarations, but slowly, carefully, like two people learning to trust each other one small step at a time. Julian started finding reasons to talk to Iris. Not about work, about other things. Books, movies, the weather. Stupid, ordinary things that felt extraordinary when she was the one responding. She never pushed him away, but she never pulled him closer either. Just allowed him into her orbit, carefully, with boundaries that were clear but not unkind. One afternoon, he brought her coffee. She'd mentioned once, during a meeting, that she liked her coffee black with just a little bit of honey. He showed up at her office with a cup, black coffee, honey on the side. She looked at it for a long moment. You remembered, she said. I pay attention. Most people don't. I'm trying to be better than most people. She took the coffee, took a sip, then looked at him with something that might have been approval. You're doing okay, she said. It was the best compliment he'd ever received. 3 months in, Julian realized something terrifying. He was falling in love with her. Not the way he'd thought he loved the 17 women before her. Not the shallow, temporary, ultimately selfish thing he'd convinced himself was affection. The kind that made him think about her first thing in the morning and last thing at night. The kind that hurt beautifully, in a way that felt like being alive for the first time. The kind that made him want to be better, not for recognition or approval, but because she deserved someone who was better. Real love. She'd see right through any declaration, would know if he was lying, would see if his feelings were real or just another version of the pattern dressed up in nicer clothes. He didn't tell her. How could he, after everything he'd done, after the person he'd been? So he kept it to himself and tried to show her instead. Small things. Bringing her coffee. Remembering details about her life. Defending her ideas in meetings even when it put him at odds with other executives. Staying late when she stayed late. Not to pressure her, but just to be nearby in case she needed anything. He looked up. You can see that? I've always been able to see it. But now it's real. Solid. Not just trying. Actually being. Is that enough? He asked before he could stop himself. Enough for what? He wanted to say, enough for you to trust me. Enough for you to love me. Enough for you to give me a chance. Enough to make up for who I was before. But instead he said, enough to matter. She set down her pen, turned to face him fully. Julian, she said gently, you're asking the wrong question. What's the right question? He asked her, is it enough for you? Are you changing because you want me? Or because you want to be someone you can live with? The question hit him like a physical blow, because he didn't know the answer. Or maybe he did, and he was afraid to admit it. Both. He said finally, honestly, I want to be better. But I also want you. And I don't know if that makes me selfish or human or both. She looked at him for a long, long time. Then she said, "It makes you human." Everything changed on a Tuesday in November. Julian was in a board meeting when his phone buzzed. A text from Iris. "Need to talk. Urgent. My office." He excused himself, walked quickly through the halls, found her standing by her window, arms crossed, face pale. "What's wrong?" he asked. "There's someone in the company," she said quietly. "Someone dangerous. I mean someone who's here to destroy you. And they're very, very good at hiding it." His blood went cold. "Who?" "I don't know yet. I can see the intention, but I can't see the face. It's like they're blocking me somehow. But they're close. Close to you. And they're planning something that will bring everything down." "Iris, this sounds crazy." I know, she cut in. "But I'm telling you the truth. Someone in this company is going to betray you. Soon, and if you're not prepared, it will destroy everything you've built." He believed her, without question, without hesitation. Because in the months he'd known her, Iris had never been wrong about anything she'd seen. "What do I do?" he asked. "Be careful. Trust no one. And whatever happens in the next few weeks, whatever you see, whatever you hear, remember that things are not always what they seem. Everything is falling apart. His reputation, his company, his life. And the person destroying him is someone close. Someone he trusts." Comment below, who do you think it is? If you need to know what happens next, and trust me, you do, Part 2 is already up. The link is in the description. Don't wait. Don't scroll past. Go watch it now.